Okay, what we're looking at here is microStudio. This is a full IDE to create JavaScript applications. This is microScript. It's a very easy to pick up language, and we have a preview window here. And what we're looking at is a little game I wrote, just a little simple Space Invader game. So let's refresh, and we can see that it works really nice, smooth. And if we wanted to see this in a browser, we just launched our external browser. We can resize and things keep working, or we could go full screen and things keep working. And we can close this down. And the great thing about microStudio is like you can make changes on the fly. Let's come here and choose a different color for our Space Invader. And paint that and go back to code, and we can see that it already changed. We didn't have to reload or recompile or anything really. The other thing you can do is make code changes on the fly basically, and for the most part it'll take effect right away. So I change even when you don't even have valid code. So if we change this to 5, well, we ran out of Space Invaders. Let me reload that. And so if we change it to 10, the initial speed, we can see that we slowed it down. And if we change it to 2, we can see that we made it go really fast. So you can make changes like this and see instant results. So very good. Easy to manage your sprites, a built-in sprite editor. You can import sounds. There's a synth here. I haven't been able to make it work. I'm not sure what's involved in creating these sounds, but it's not real obvious to me, and I haven't bothered researching, but it's there if you haven't seen it. Yeah, you could import MP3s, just drag them here. There's no editor for MP3. But what I do is I use SFRX, SFXR, what is it? Let me find it here. Okay, here it is. So I use this too because I don't know how to edit music or sound. This has built-in sounds that you can modify choosing these different settings here. And once you found a sound that you like, you can save it as a WAV file. And this is what I've used to create my sounds. Where's my sounds? I'm not sure if you could hear, but that's fire and explode. And so that's how I ended up creating this in microStudio. So everything you see here, all the sounds were imported in, and sprites. You can draw your sprites somewhere else and also drag them in here as well. But it basically bundles everything, and you could publish your app on itch.io and all these other locations here. So it makes it very easy to download, create a simple game, package it up, and upload it. And you could also choose some exporting options on the orientation of how your game is supposed to look like. So it has some flexibility with the publishing, but basically I just go with the defaults. I think I chose this. This wasn't a default, but you have lots of options here. Basically, if you want your game to look a certain way, it's there. Anyway, one of the questions I had for myself was, this is all great. Microscript is really easy to learn, but I'm not really a microscript kind of guy. I find it a little limiting in terms of some of the things that I want to do. So for simple things, it's really great. The more you start thinking some of the advanced things, you start thinking, how am I going to do this with the limited options of the language here? And basically, kind of stuck in this editor. And I really don't have much previous code to build on top. So a lot of my code would be brand new in microscript. But I do have a lot of Pascal code. I've solved a lot of problems over the years. And so I could solve most of the problems. I just can't create JavaScript apps. So I thought maybe I should do a port and see if I can match up the result with Pass2JS and see how well that works. And it was actually pretty straightforward to recreate the logic for all the main classes, the enemy, the bullet. I changed some things around, but basically it's the same program. Um, and with a few things slightly different. The assets we have to use a different way. I'm using the preload tag and the HTML tag to preload all these. So if we take a look at our res file here, this is basically all the external files included as basically a string of data here. So all this represents all the images, and further down we have the sounds, which take up a lot more space. So the advantage of doing it this way is that we don't have to create any fancy code to load our assets. So this was one of the things I wanted to solve from the very start. I don't like the way of loading in each individual file. I'd rather have them all preloaded and not have to worry. And so when it comes to playing the sounds or displaying the images, we don't have to do any weird kind of loops or anonymous functions to display the image or make sure that the image is loaded. Everything is just really simple this way. So I've been able to solve that, and it's the only thing I was worried about was the performance because previous attempts to make something like this in Pass2JS ended up coming up slow. Like there was a lag between displaying and input, and I wasn't quite sure if that was a Pass2JS problem or it was a Nick problem, and I didn't know how to do it. When I looked at the Pass2JS examples, they really weren't much help because they were doing the same thing I was doing, and so you were getting a really slow input loop with the set timer and everything. It kind of works, but it didn't work fast. So let me kind of demonstrate here how it would. So this is the normal speed for microStudio. See how smooth everything goes, and even if you run it in a full screen browser, it's really smooth also. When I would try to recreate this, I would get something like this. See how I'm hitting the key slowly, but this is the kind of performance I would be getting. It was more jittery and there was input lag. And so I didn't think that would be possible, but I've studied enough JavaScript code, and basically what I needed to do was use the request animation loop. Let me bring that up. Yeah, so basically if we use this little loop here, it gives us the ability to display much more images at a higher not a higher at a faster frame rate um, than we would normally with using the set timers and the traditional input routines. So if we take a look at the the handle key down, I'm doing that plus also handling the handle key up. And when I get one of these events, I'm not really processing the event here, except for fire. Um, but for left and right, I'm actually setting a flag in the my player class to indicate which direction. Now, as silly as that sounds, when it's part of the request animation frame loop, it actually performs much faster. And so I'm just going to demonstrate now that, let's go, this is the compiled version of the Space Invader game with Pass2JS. So if we launch that, it looks very similar to the microStudio version. And we can do the same things. We can resize it here and fire and move, and it all looks smooth also. So let's make it, let's go full screen. So I'm pressing F11, and you can see that we didn't lose anything. The game didn't pause or anything, and everything works like microStudio, and everything kind of looks fluid and smooth. And let's let's make some changes to see if we can make this go a little faster, so you can see that it actually can handle a lot more than I'm giving it at the moment. So I'm going to jump into an area of the code. This is where we control the timing. So we actually have more control over the timing in Pastor.js than in the microStudio. So I'm going to reduce this down to 50, and we can see the speed difference. So I'm going to recompile, and let's jump back to Firefox and reload this. Did I save this? Let's save, recompile, and reload. Okay, I had to do shift reload because it was caching it. But we can see now that everything is moving much faster. And everything works the same way. Again, if we go full screen. So I think, how many of these do I have going on the screen at the same time? Let's put this back to 200. So I have 30 of these Space Invaders going on the screen at the same time, which is quite a lot if you're designing any kind of shoot 'em up or role-playing game. So that gives you an idea that you could have a lot of images on the screen moving and changing locations, and it all still works pretty good. So I've had to modify my development process where I'm using Visual Studio Code to edit, then I have to jump to the command line to compile, then reload in the browser. But once you get something similar set up, it's just as fast as microStudio. Now, the advantage of doing this is that there's a huge amount of Pascal code. There's been tons of books that have been written over the years that you could use for learning. Delphi is still, a commercial option, but there's all kinds of code that you could study to learn things. So there's a lot of code out there, and there's a lot of problems that have been solved. And if there's no Pascal code, there's C code. And I've been able to convert C code to Pascal code, depending how complex things are, much easier than any other language. So they're very similar, besides the begin and the end, and the braces that C has. They're all kind of, you can do almost line by line translations of going from C to Pascal, and I've done the reverse also, going from Pascal to C. So it's something that there's a lot of code that you can share and learn from. So that would be the main advantage of using Pascal these days. I know it's not a popular language, but if you've been programming Pascal, Delphi for a long time, this might be another viable option for creating web-based apps. So Pastor.js is really good, supports a number of Pascal advanced features. I've only been using a small sample, but this small project proves to me that yes, you could create small games, maybe even more advanced games, but I haven't reached that level. So I think you should give it a try. Give both a try actually. microStudio is pretty good. So if you don't have any Pascal experience and just want to get into uh, creating web-based apps, microStudio might be the way. But if you know Pascal and we're a little scared to get into the web-based development, Pasta.js may be an option. I wouldn't recommend it for creating uh, business apps. There's much better options for JavaScript at the moment, but maybe with the integration of Pasta.js and Lazarus and maybe built-in form support, that might be a different option in the future. But both really good. If you're a Pascal programmer, give Pasta.js a try.